Hello everyone, welcome back. You're watching Empyrion Galactic Survival episode 132. I'm Enigmius and today we're continuing with the Heracles. We're doing one more room for this whole interior glass project that this is turned into. We've got the giant glass tube running from one end of the ship to the other, and now we've got different rooms branching off of that tube for different purposes. Last episode we did the utility room with all of the equipment and machines that we use on a regular basis. This episode we're going to be making a room for our ammunition containers. After that we will have rooms for our fuel tanks and our agriculture center where we can grow all of our food. I'm not going to be showing you guys how I do the rooms for the agriculture and the fuel tanks, because once you've seen one or two, you've seen them all. I don't think it's particularly useful or even entertaining to keep showing the construction of these rooms. That having been said, the reason why I'm showing this one this time around is because there were a couple of details regarding the construction of these rooms that I thought of that guide the design to a certain extent that I hadn't really mentioned, or that I'd sort of touched on barely, but not really distilled into its most useful little bits, if that makes any sense. One of the things that I had thought of as I was setting up the elevator going into this specific room is that I came up with the idea with this tube of having it so that if there's an area of the ship that can't be pressurized, or that we don't want to pressurize for any reason, we can have that segregated from the rest of the pressurized areas, and then we don't have to worry about it. The key example that we've got in place so far is the elevator that leads to the outside of the ship. Rather than trying to seal the elevator shaft and try and get as much pressurized space as possible, we just left that whole thing and the room that you arrive in at the top of that elevator unpressurized, and then you've got doors a step or two away to either side that will lead you to a pressurized space. So it's, in my personal opinion, it's a better way of doing things, because I did try with the Saturnus to have doors in elevator shafts to create that seal. I just don't like it. I don't like it at all. Again, personal subjective preference is basically what this is going on. The one thing that I hadn't actually reached yet when we're talking about looking at these design ideas and the reasoning behind them, the one thing that I hadn't reached yet is the idea of fully encapsulating each of these rooms so that if there's damage to one of the rooms, it doesn't depressurize everything. Part of this came from reading a little bit on the way agricultural things are working since 6.0, and maybe not working as intended in a couple of cases, depending on what version we're on and whether or not the bug fixes have done the job. But the whole idea that I'd come up all the way up to this point without making that connection was kind of a blinking eyes moment for me when I realized there's this one element that we have to take care of, and that is making sure that if somebody shoots at our ship enough to get through the hull and then shoots a hole in the glass, that area will depressurize, but the others should be protected. So there's going to be a lot of doors in this glass tube, because there's going to be a door on either side of any given elevator shaft so that we can encapsulate that elevator shaft and the connected room so that whatever is going on in other areas of the ship doesn't impact those individual rooms. So that was one consideration that came to mind that I wanted to communicate a little bit more clearly, having now thought of it and being able to articulate it a little bit better, is that whole idea. We're not necessarily talking about redundancy, which is sometimes very important if you're talking about making the most stable, safe, protected thing possible, but just the whole idea of making sure that one room sustaining damage doesn't carry over in consequences to other rooms. That's what sort of came to mind. That's what we're doing now. That's why if you look at the glass tube, when we're done adding all of these different rooms, it's going to have weird shapes all the way through that will probably duplicate. There'll be the same combination of weird shapes for each area where there's an elevator going to a room, so that we can have this encapsulation. We can make sure that everything is safe and good and happy. Other than that, you can see here we've got the same concepts going into place that we had in the utility room. We've got the combat steel that we're using to make the transition between the block spaces. I guess you could say the glass floor isn't quite oriented properly in the way that I would feel comfortable that it's sealing everything around it. So in order to make sure that it has an opportunity to do that, we do this little combat steel, little narrow slope transition, so that when we then add the quarter round curving glass that starts the wall process, everything should be sealed properly. That's the whole idea. Lots and lots of ammunition containers, because it's a big ship. And I would imagine, again, in my case, because I have this tendency to build ships, test them, and then just start building another ship immediately, that's way more ammunition storage than I need. For people who will actually take this ship and use it for a good long time, like I say, with the various different modifications that they might make to make it theirs and suit their purposes a little bit more specifically, having this kind of ammunition storage might be a good thing, because capital vessels can carry a lot of different kinds of guns, and consequently you need a lot of different kinds of ammunition. And if you want to have a stack of containers reserved for each type of ammunition, or anything really that makes sense to you, that's just requiring additional space, and it's an additional space that we have in spades. We have plenty of space to do pretty much whatever we want. Also, and you didn't see it happening with the utility room, but you did see it happening here. We put a glass rail all the way around the platform floor that you'll be running around on whenever you're in this room interacting with the different containers. I don't think it's necessary, but it makes sense. And I kind of like the look of it. It gives things a sense of completion, whereas having the platforms just sort of terminate in nothingness was a little bit unrefined, and there was just something about it that said we need a finishing touch, and the finishing touch was just adding some rails all the way around, or in this case it's a half wall glass pane sort of thing. In terms of getting the top into place, the walls, primarily the 2x2 glass panes make everything quick and easy. We do the quarter round curves again coming around to make the ceiling. We fill in the ceiling in whatever way makes sense. We have to have a few 1 block wide panels just to make everything come together with the symmetry that I was looking for in this particular case. And then it's all closed in and it's taken care of and it's done. So between now and the next episode, I'm going to get the fuel tank and the agricultural areas in place. Anything else that we decide that we want, we can add later. I don't personally, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that would require us to add more rooms above and beyond what I've already mentioned. But you never know. Like I say, if we have to, we've got plenty of room to do it. And then we're going to start the process of, I think we're going to do a lot of work on the central hull area just to get things started and to define a theme for the rest of the build. And then from that, we'll also be branching off and doing the hangars. Like I said, it's going to be a very asymmetric build. When you look at the finished ship, it's not going to be something that's identical on the left half compared to the right half or anything like that. It's going to be very, very different on both halves. But we can still see a little bit of symmetry down that central area around the glass tube. Use that as an opportunity to start refining some ideas about the general theme and how things are laid out and taken care of. And then we'll do the hangars and bring it all together and do the tweaks and modifications and finishing touches. It's going to be a fairly lengthy build process just because the size involved and the number of different ideas we can go through for different themes that can even work together. It doesn't have to be one wholly unified theme. We can actually probably make it a little bit more interesting if we have different sub-themes that kind of are visible here and there, but not necessarily across the entire ship. So we've got lots to do, absolutely lots to do. And my promise to you that it won't involve making you watch me build any more of these glass rooms. So if you want to be notified about the next and future videos in this and other series, the easiest way to do that is to subscribe to my channel or follow me on social media. Links for social media always in the information section below the video. Feel free to leave your comments and feedback. Thanks for watching, guys, and take care.